Rain Shroud is a young guy with beast hammer abilities, which means he has the power to communicate with animals and form contracts with them. He uses their powers for his benefit. Thanks to these abilities, he lands a position in a hero's party and helps with transport, reconnaissance, and logistics. He works hard to support his comrades in the background, a valuable job he's been entrusted by the party, or so he thinks. In reality, other members look down upon him because he lacks combatant skills. Within just 6 months of working with him, Rain gets fired by the arrogant party leader, Arios Orlando. They say he's useless to his face, and that he only holds them back because they constantly have to save him from monsters. Shocked to hear what his comrades really think of him, Rain silently takes his hero cloak off and leaves. Rain sits on a bench at the town square and contemplates all the harsh remarks the members had thrown at him before, which he had overlooked. He needs to think of a plan to keep making a living. At that moment, a group of kids run over to him and ask him to show them his trick again. Green gets up and casts a spell at a bird above them to form a temporary contract with it. The bird lands before them and gives a gracious bow to the kids who clap with joy. Rain ends the contract and releases the bird, which flies away. The children chat about how they will become a beast hammer like Rain. Sunday, Rain questions why they don't dream of becoming a brave hero, to which the kids reply that the heroes are a snobbish group of people who look down upon commoners. They would much rather earn a fortune by becoming an adventurer, traveling the world. It sparks a light bulb in Rain's head about his next course of action. Later in the day, he goes to the Adventurers Guild to look for jobs. Nearly, the receptionist clarifies that all prospective adventurers must first pass a trial quest to prove they meet the basic requirements to become an adventurer. You must kill 10 goblins and collect 20 medicinal herbs to pass the test. Rain uses the help of a squirrel to find a group of goblins, which he kills easily despite his lack of combat skills because they are F-rank monsters. While counting the runestones left behind by the goblins, he hears a scream from deeper in the woods. Ryan runs toward the scream to see a D-rank killer tiger attacking a helpless woman. He tries to stab the tiger's back, but its skin is so tough that his max blade breaks. The tiger diverts its focus on him, prompting Ryan to tell the girl to run away. However, she doesn't run away. Instead, she jumps several meters up in the air and uses the momentum to kick the tiger down, killing it. After getting a better look at her, Reen realizes she is no ordinary woman but a cat spirit, a type of ultimate species. Ultimate species are a unique class of beings with immense powers and strength, and cat spirits are a type of ultimate species on the brink of extinction. Although they are magic users, cat spirits have evolved to possess tremendous athletic abilities. Reen feeds her some of his food supplies, since she looks exhausted after defeating the tiger. All energized again, the cat spirit introduces herself as Canid and thanks him for saving her life. She says she got bored living in her small community, so she decided to travel and landed up here and met him. From the moment she saw him, she has sensed strong powers within him and can tell he must be a very talented beast tamer who can tame her. With the motive of getting to know her better, he agrees to tame her. He starts the ritual by biting his thumb and spilling a drop on his palm to form a magical rune. With that, he chants the words and successfully forms a contract between them. Both of them have a rune on their hand to symbolize the bond between them. After that, Reen continues with his trial quest. He forms temporary contracts with a bunch of rabbits to gather medicinal herbs for him. Watching this, Canid gets super impressed with his abilities. Normal beast tamers can usually only handle forming one temporary contract at a time. However, Reen is able to not only form multiple contracts at a time, but also while he is taming Canid, an ultimate species. This is beyond the scope of an ordinary beast hammer. He doesn't think it's that impressive and brushes it off. Rain returns to the guild with all the required items and passes the test. He is officially proclaimed an F-ranked adventurer of the Horizon Adventurers Guild. Natalie gives him his adventurer's card, which acts as his ID from now. It isn't enough to find lodging, and also 50 copper coins as a reward, and fulfill his other basic needs, so he decides to complete more jobs. Later that day, Canid waits for him at the guild's diner. When he returns, a brutish man approaches them both and tries to get Canid to join him for lunch instead of her friend or master. Reen tells the man to get lost, but this bruises his ego, and he challenges Reen to an armed wrestling competition to determine who is really stronger. The winner gets to keep Canid. Although Reen would normally never accept such challenges, he wants to nip this in the bud and prevent any chances of the man harassing Canid in the future. He sighs and sits on the chair, expecting to lose miserably. However, the second the match begins, Reen forces the man's arm so hard that the table breaks, and the man falls down on the floor, crying madly. Natalie comes to check the commotion and gets mad when she sees the man. She apologizes to Reen and Canid for the nuisance, saying that the man has many complaints against him already and is bound to get suspended from the guild soon. Having said that, she grabs him by the leg and drags him out. Reen wonders where all his strength came from. Canid explains that one of the perks of the contract between them is that he gains her superhuman strength. Canid is excited to get started on more quests, but she is underwhelmed when they're back in the field, collecting herbs. Reen is only an F-rank adventurer, and they are confined to the very basic of jobs with the lowest pay. They will be promoted once they gather enough experience. With the help of the rabbits, they collect enough herbs to meet their quota soon enough. When they're about to head back, Canid's sensitive cat ears hear yelling in the distance. They run towards the sound to investigate, and see an old man getting harassed by a gang claiming to be part of the Ebon Fang. The Ebon Fang is an infamous large group of bandits with a reputation for being involved in all sorts of horrible crimes. At once, they both start charging towards the ruffians and take them by surprise. Reen takes care of all the bandits with his newfound strength, and Canid checks on the old man. The old man warns them to run because everyone who defies the Ebon Fang ends up getting tracked down and killed as revenge. Hearing that, Reen decides to hunt them down first. Canid expresses her concerns about him aiming too high, but he assures her he has a plan. A squirrel leads them to the Ebon Fang's heavily guarded hideout. Reen forms a temporary contract with an army bee, a special type of bee with a very potent paralytic sting that can immobilize a man for 12 whole hours. He asks Canid to go back to town and bring adventurers and knights in the meantime to help arrest all the criminals. Once she races off to get reinforcements, the army bee brings back hundreds of its hive mates. Reen forms a contract with each of them and orders them to begin their work. All the bandits are paralyzed in no time, and the adventurers that Canid brought quickly start rounding them up. Reen notices that gnome knights have shown up, to which one of the adventurers says the knights didn't think it was a big enough deal to come. Suddenly, the cave starts rumbling, and loud growls bellow behind huge bars. 3 giant C-ranked monsters called king lizards break out of the bars. Such a scenario is a crisis for even the most seasoned adventurers, but Reen and Canid beat them up like nobody's business. The adventurers exit the cave to cheery and applause from the other adventurers, making it the first time Reen's work has been appreciated. Meanwhile, Reen's former party members yell at their newly hired beast Tamer for not conducting the reconnaissance properly and endangering the other members' lives as a result, because they expect him to tame 10 to 20 animals at a time. The newbie says their demands have been unreasonable. He claims that beast tamers can handle more than 1 or 2 at once because their brains get fried if they exceed their limit. However, the heroes, being accustomed to Reen's abilities, believe the man is lying and fire him on the spot. The task of arresting and transporting all the bandits takes almost a whole day. The taking down of the Ebon Fang is considered so impressive that the guild invites Reen, especially promotes him to an E-rank adventurer, and rewards him with a generous amount of silver coins. They splurge their money on new equipment, eat a luxurious meal, and finally rent a room for lodging that night. A nice break from camping. A week passes since he met Canid, and their quests have been smooth sailing so far. One day, Medley gives them a quest to get rid of a troublemaker called a gore dog that is tormenting people who try to cross the Stride Bridge, the only path to trade from the central continent where he is from to the southern continent. Reen doesn't want to pass on the lofty prize of 5 gold coins and gladly accepts it. Reen tries to get information about the identity of the gore dog, but nobody is willing to share. So, with no prior knowledge, him and Canid go to the bridge. As soon as they arrive, a giant red dragon lands in front of them and turns into a woman who tells them to fight her. She admits she is the so-called gore dog and identifies herself as Tanya. When the dragon awaits, it's custom for dragonoids, one of the ultimate species, to set out on a journey once they turn 15 to train and become strong. She has been waiting for a worthy opponent to fight at the bridge. She challenges them to a 2-on-1 fight, before which she refuses to leave the bridge. She begins by attacking Reen, but he just barely blocks her. She follows it by blowing fire towards them, causing Canid's tail to get better at the tip. Upset, Canid jumps at her, and the two get into a catfight, pun intended. Both the girls are on equal footing. Reen tries to step in to tip the balance towards their favor, but Tanya surprisingly grabs them both and flings them into the air and launches a powerful firestorm at them. Canid grabs Reen in midair and uses her athletic abilities to dodge the flames and safely land them on the bridge. Having come up with a plan, he asks Canid to buy him some time. Fully trusting him, she fights Tanya head-on, while Reen runs off to the side and looks for the bird he spotted when he was flung in the air by Tanya. He finds it and forms a temporary contract with it. He asks it to bring its friends, each of which he tames as well. Upon his instruction, the birds swarm Tanya and pick on her. Tanya only finds them a mere annoyance and shoos them away. Of course, a dragonoid can't be hurt by birds. However, before she can take another step, she crumbles to the ground. Reed explains that they are Fido birds, and their colorful plumage signifies that they are poisonous. Unable to lift a finger, Tanya accepts defeat. Reen asks her to promise not to cause problems at the bridge again and to come with them once she's recovered. First, they go to the guild to inform Medley that the matter has been taken care of. Natalie praises them and promises to give them their reward once the guild verifies the claim. She never saw Tanya's horns and questions who she is. Reen quickly covers for her and claims she's a normal human they met during their quest, and that she is only wearing a costume. If a town finds out there's a dragon in the area, everybody will panic. Next, he escorts her to the woods and asks Tanya to go as far away as possible from the town to continue her training. She's taken aback by this because she expected to be sold by him. Charmed by his kindness and ability, she asks to join them on their adventures for her training. Jealous Canid hesitantly agrees to her request, and Reen is more than happy to grow his party. With that settled, Reen forms a contract with Tanya as well and tames her. Later that night, Arios and his party return to the town after an unsuccessful week of exploring the woods. They ran into many obstacles because they couldn't handle the jobs Reem would normally do. Arios decides to take advantage of Reem's meekness by asking him to join the party again, so that they can use him to clear the lost woods and abandon him after. Good luck with that anyway. The first quest that the trio does together is exterminating slimes. Slimes are boring monsters that any adventurer can kill, and are largely ignored due to this. Their populations sometimes burst, and they swarm the town, causing a lot of inconvenience. The trio finds it harder than expected to find many slimes. Reen and Canid come up with a strategy. He uses the assimilate skill to transfer his consciousness to the bird temporarily, a skill that other beast tamers can perform according to Canid and Tanya. This allows him to use the bird's body and observe things from its perspective while his actual body dozes off. He goes off to find slime swarms from an aerial view while Canid and Tanya look after his body. They all gather around a large swarm he found. Tanya asks him if he can cast any spells, to which he says he knows the beginner's stuff but can't handle more advanced ones. She tells him to cast Fireball on the swarm. He knows it won't be enough to kill the entire swarm, but tries anyway. He concentrates and yells out, "Fireball!" To his surprise, he unleashes a giant fireball that eliminates all of them. Canade's hunch turns out right. She guessed that since he acquired Canid's superhuman strength after forming a contract with her, he also would have acquired Tanya's dragonoid fire magical abilities. Since he's not used to using magic, he uses the rest of the quest to improve his control over casting spells. After completing the quests, they get a whole lot of money, which they spend on a lavish dinner. Over dinner, Reen shares that he learned his beast tamer skills in his hometown. He used to live in a nameless village of entirely beast tamers, including his parents, so there was never a moment in his childhood when he wasn't exposed to the art. However, his hometown doesn't exist anymore. One day when he was just 12 years old, he went off to practice beast taming alone in the woods. Only when he was returning late in the evening did he notice the sky had turned red in the distance, and a large area was on fire. His gut feeling told him that something was wrong and he started running home. When he arrived, he saw the whole village covered in ashes and everybody he knew dead. While he was gone, the village was attacked by monsters. An adventurer party rescued him and took him to an inn where he would earn his keep by doing chores and odd jobs for years. This was his life until less than a year ago, when hero Arios recruited him to his party. Reen accepted his invitation without hesitation, hoping to make a difference and prevent tragedies like the one that befell his hometown. However, he now realizes that they were just using him. Hearing his story, Canid and Tanya are proud to have him as their master. Their next quest is to eradicate orcs around the town. Orcs are E-ranked monsters that are similar to goblins but are much smarter and often use weapons. They clear several bands of orcs with ease, causing Tanya to take the mission very lightly. However, she gets ambushed by orcs when she least expects it, and gets saved by Reen and Canid. Titania panics over Reen's minor injury, but he tells her not to worry and heals it with his enhanced healing powers. The incident seems to affect her deeply, and she is too ashamed to show her face to Reen once they return to the town. He walks up to her and asks her what's wrong. She immediately apologizes for letting her guard down, causing him to get injured. He accepts it with a big smile and asks her to be careful the next time, because he and Canid care about her. Kindness leaves her speechless and blushing. They breeze through their quests the next day and start heading back to town. On their way, they run into none other than Arios and his party. Reen reflexively decides to turn the other way and take another route, but Arios stops him. The party is shocked to see him with two ultimate species. Arios tells him that the party ran into problems trying to explore the lost wolves on their own, and condescendingly asks him to join the party again to provide his services. Thankfully, Reen knows his worth and firmly declines their offer. Seeing him walk away, one of the heroes tells him to wait. She says that their mission in the Lost Woods is to retrieve one of the noble relics, the Shield of Truth, needed to defeat the Demon King. It'll be impossible to defeat the Demon King without the relics, leading to monsters running rampant everywhere and killing civilians. The thought causes Reen to remember his childhood trauma and forces him to accept their offer. Tanya and Canid intervene and demand an apology from Arios for mistreating Reen. The hero is too prideful to ask for forgiveness from him and demeans the girls by calling them Reen's pets. This causes Reen to snap and punch him. Insulted, the insolent Arios challenges Reen and his comrades to prove which of the groups is stronger. Canade fights head-on with the bald swordsman and overwhelms him with a hurricane of punches. He tries to use a fancy technique to slash her down, but she simply kicks his sword away. Realizing he can't possibly beat her, he hesitates on the next attack. He questions why such a strong ultimate species wants to serve the incompetent Reen. Canid's anger causes her to deliver a kick straight to his face and knocks him out. Next, Tanya faces the party's two mages. They simultaneously unleash their first spells at her, but Tanya stands her ground and simply snaps her fingers. Just like that, their magic dissolves. They try a game of different spells, but they disappear again with the snap of a finger. Tanya explains that she is using Material Cleanser, a technique that identifies his spell at the fundamental level and neutralizes it with an effective counterspell. It may distract the mages, but they are eventually too exhausted to cast anymore. Tanya teaches them a lesson by threatening to annihilate them with epic-level magic, but reveals she was bluffing for Reen's sake. Finally, it's Reen versus Arios. Arios tries to make a snarky comment, but Reen cuts him off with a punch in the face. Arios draws his sword and attacks him with rapid swings that are barely visible to Reen. Still, nothing compared to when he faced Tanya at the Stride Bridge. He finds an opening and punches Arios in the gut. The hero is struck by his superhuman strength, which he is sure he didn't have before. Arios switches to magic, but Reen easily counters the lightning spell with his powerful dragonoid strength-infused fireball. Arios' nose bleeds. Reen only knows how to cast fireball and heal and launches a bunch of magical attacks that he can't counter. Reen decides to return to his roots and fights how he's most comfortable. Arios charges toward him with magic, but suddenly feels a sharp sting and falls to the ground. Reen shows him the RB with whom he formed a remote temporary contract during the fight, proving that beast tamers are not useless. Just for the sake of satisfaction, Reen finishes Arios with an earth-shaking blow. After the fight, the heroes pass on their tasks to Reen and the girls. Apparently, the Shield of Truth is currently in possession by monsters deep in the woods, and retrieving it is indispensable to defeating the Demon King. The trio goes to the Lost Woods to look for it on their own. The Lost Woods gets its name because it constantly changes its shape, causing explorers to get lost in the impossible maze. Reen employs a simulate strategy to get the lay of the land while the two watch over his body. He returns after successfully finding a path that leads deeper into the forest. They follow the path, but eventually find themselves back at the spot where they later marked their way. Tanya suspects something more at play and uses a material search spell to look for strong magical sources. The light orbs lead the way to a large tree that releases illusionary magic, which messes with the brains of all those within its field and causes them to walk in circles. Tanya asks Canid to destroy the tree to stop the magic, but Reen suggests Tanya disarm it without killing it. Before that, Canid launches a powerful kick to the tree. Before she can make contact, an eerie voice comes from the tree, telling them to leave this place. The voice repeats itself over and over again as a glowing girl with wings emerges from the tree. They realize they're witnessing a fairy, an ultimate species with magical powers even stronger than the dragonoids. They try to explain themselves to the fairy, but she always cuts them off and tells them to leave. When they don't listen, she threatens to force them out with magic, and they run away without another word. Once they get away, Reen explains that fairies condemn humans due to the long history of conflict between the two species. It leads to the fairies, the forest dwellers, losing most of their habitat and finding sanctuary in the few remaining dense woods. They consider the possibility that the tree's barrier is protecting the Shield of Truth. Tanya and Canid plot strategies to destroy the tree, but Reen decides it is best to try and talk to the fairy once again. When they return to the tree, he asks Canid and Tanya to stay back. He confronts the fairy, who threatens to attack them for real if they don't leave. Reen accepts the attack to show he is sincere in his wish to talk to her. The fairy unleashes a bunch of arrows that graze him, but he remains standing in place with a smile. This shocks the fairy for a moment, and he uses the opportunity to convince her he has good intentions. However, she snaps out of her confusion and launches another attack. This time, Canid and Tanya block the attack and appeal to the fairy by telling her about all the kind things he's done for them. This piques the fairy's interest, and she decides to hear them out. She introduces herself as Sora. After learning of their intention to find the Shield of Truth, Sora reveals herself to be the one who erected the tree's barrier, but still refuses to lower it because the barrier protects the fairy's village from being discovered. Also, it's not monsters but fairies who protect the Shield of Truth since it is required to kill the Demon King. She hands it over to them. Her hate for monsters runs deeper than her hate for humans, hence, retrieving the relic turned out to be much easier than expected. The trio thanked Sora and made their way back, but Reen couldn't shake the feeling that she looked uneasy. He returned to ask her if something was wrong. At first, Sora was hesitant, but she revealed that she had a twin sister, Luna, with whom she used to maintain the barrier. However, a few days ago, they left the barrier together for a short period to do something else, but ran into a monster from the Demon King's army called the Shadow Knight. They were unable to defeat it, and it captured Luna, demanding Sora lower the barrier and reveal the village in exchange for her sister. Unable to turn against all their folks, she ran back to the village and begged the leader for help, but he chose the village's safety over Luna and ordered Sora to ignore the monster's ultimatum. Although she was bound to listen, she couldn't bear to leave her sister in the monster's hands. Canid and Tanya wondered how two fairies couldn't beat the monster. Reen explained that even though Shadow Knights are C-rank monsters that would otherwise be easily defeated by ultimate species, they have the nasty ability to absorb all magic, making them impossible to defeat by fairies who solely rely on magic. They agreed to help Sora get her sister back.